All right, a throwback photo there of the KANU. I want just also for you to see, Tony Gachoka, this particular photo, if you may remember there.
Yes.
There we have President Kenyatta pictured at Parliament buildings after KANU parliamentary group meeting. Since today we are KANU top heavy. Yeah, with of course left to right the Speaker, Mr. F. Mati,
Yes.
and the Vice President, Mr. Daniel Arap Moi. We have Mr. Nyaga there, Minister for Agriculture, the rare. And we have Mr. Mwai Kibaki, Minister for Finance, Economic Planning and Development. This is on October the 27th, 1970. The KANU national level. Yeah, this is new history.
Yes.
And Moi said truly, KANU will rule for the next 100 years, as you've mentioned. Most of them, though, in KANU as well.
It's a beautiful picture of history. And maybe even a point to reflect. Since we got independence from the British colonial rule, Kenya, under more than 30 years, 24 of President Moi and 15 of President Kibaki, we were reaching, before we came to the 2010 Constitution, the question of whether Kenya should be a multi-party democracy and whether Kenya should have competitive elections. And the history of KANU is the history of fighting for liberation of Kenya. But then the issue that once that was won, it became authoritarian. That the arguments against KANU were that there was no internal democracy, and therefore the leadership of KANU and the country could not be decided by a free vote of the public. So there came this issue of no reform, no election. And this was led by a long of young Turks, including Kivutha Kibwana, Davida Lamba, the Honorable Raila Odinga, and so, in fact, this Chief Justice Emeritus, William Mutunga, Wafula Buke, and so many, about why we needed to begin to discuss the creation of a multi-party democratic state. And so when the multi-party argument was won, and Moi was defeated, and I want to tell the country as a member of KANU that Moi was defeated and handed power. It was not comfortable, it was not easy. He was in Uhuru Park and the country was singing, Yote inawezekana bila Moi. But despite the trauma he faced personally and the power with which he had ruled for a long time, he had the magnanimity within the respect of his party, KANU, to hand over power to Mwai Kibaki. And that became the first transition since Jomo Kenyatta had passed away in office. The first peaceful transition of power was officiated by KANU in handing power to the popularly elected Mwai Kibaki. So KANU left a good example of how difficult it may be to leave power, but how important it is. And as Moi retired into his Nakuru home, Kenyans continued to pay praise to him for not interfering with the government that was elected, and rarely ever spoke about Mwai Kibaki during his tenure and later Uhuru Kenyatta. I'm raising these issues because there has been claims that ODM owns democracy, and that somehow because ODM came from the constitutional argument of no or yes, of orange against banana, that ODM somehow owns and only ODM owns the sacrifice. I want to tell Kenyans that the first person to pay the debt was KANU.